of non-duality can seem daunting. It is such. How we approach non-duality is quite often how we approach other things as well. When we read the Tao Te Ching, the Opus Magus of Lao Tzu, we learn of the path of Yang and the path of Yin. Both can be typified by Star Wars characters. The path of Yang reminds us of Darth Sidious. It's a path that makes us rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. Let's pay extra attention to our rigid and controlling tendencies. In contrast, Qui-Gon Jinn typifies the path of Yin, the path of being flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, kind. I just had a terrible thought. Maybe check the voice. Okay, that's going all right. So specifically, let's look at the attributes of being flexible and being laid back. When we are rigid and controlling, we will approach the subject of non-duality in a very aggressive, rigid, controlling way, and we'll try to force ourselves into understanding it by contemplation, whether direct contemplation or indirect contemplation through rhetorical questions or koans. This does nothing but feed our controlling tendencies. It feeds our rigidity. Now, when I first began my journey more than 30 years ago, my primary teacher, bless his heart, he meant well. He was big on contemplation. He was huge on contemplation. In fact, he viewed meditation just something you do in between contemplations. He was all about contemplation. And so, like many who had gone before me, I made the mistake of also being all about contemplation. And so I was very frustrated when it came to emptiness, my realization of emptiness. Because although I could do the somersaults and the intellectual gymnastics involved with the Madhyamaka school of philosophy, I could not translate it into my viscera. I shared this complaint with Baka Tuko Rinpoche the day he gave me the pointing out instructions. And he laughed and said that I was at the stage in the path where thinking wouldn't help me. It was time to relax. That advice was repeated to me by Lama Chodrak Gyatso, the late Lama Chodrak Gyatso, and it was also repeated to me by Bhante Vimalaramsi Mahatera. So I had numerous teachers from numerous sects giving me the same advice. And this advice was also inferred in the Buddha's 7 enlightenment factors as described in the Anapanasati Sutta. You see, when we try to think our way to nirvana, we are relying upon our prefrontal cortex. Our prefrontal cortex uses a lot of energy. So what? So this. When that energy wavers for whatever reason, distraction, or we're being spread too thin, or we're simply exhausted, or one of 1,000 factors out of our control with our circumstances, our body, our relationships, and our mind, when our intellect becomes exhausted or spread too thin, our reasoning will falter. We need a method that relies on, that is precognitive, that relies on a portion of the brain that is always available. As long as we draw breath, as long as we are alive, we are respirating. And every time we inhale, we access our sympathetic nervous system, which is wired to notice, not to actively concentrate, but to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Every time we exhale, we automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, which is wired to both physically relax as well as mentally release. So this mechanism requires no intellectual effort, it requires no emotional effort. It is hardwired into the most fundamental facet of our central nervous system, the spinal cord itself. As long as we're alive, we have access to passive mindfulness and relaxing meditation. All we have to do with our will, with our intention, with our volition, is to align ourselves with that fundamental wiring. If we do that while practicing an impeccable posture, we can call that a meditation session. If we do that every 12 hours or so, we will master the path very quickly. In the fundamental meditation manual of Dzogchen, composed by Prahe Vajra approximately 300 years after the advent of the Buddha, making one of the first great restorers of Buddhism, Gaurab Dorje lamented that this path, this potent path, this quick path is so easy that people try to, quote unquote, improve it, which works disastrously bad. People try to practice non-duality through contemplation, through rhetorical questions, through koans, through losing themselves in devotion or contrived devotion or contrived compassion. All these things warned against directly and indirectly in the fundamental text of Dzogchen, which we will, a sample of which we will explore momentarily. So the path to mastering our Buddha nature is not found in the contrivance of hyper-intellectualism or emotionality. It's found simply in noticing in harmony with our inhalation, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly, and physically relaxing as well as mentally releasing in harmony with each exhalation. In the concluding verses of the fundamental treatise on Dzogchen, it is warned that this is too easy, and if we try to make it harder than it is, it won't work for us at all. Like replacing circular wheels with square ones on our bicycle, it won't work. We won't be winning the Tour de France on a bicycle equipped with square-shaped wheels. So I'd like to, together as a team, chant the Thursday morning passage or selection from that exact same text. It's the title of the text is The Vast Path, The Vast Expanse of Vajrasattva. As I mentioned, it was composed by Gaurab Dorje. It was translated from the Tibetan into English by Yeshe Donden, and has been adapted as well as amplified by this slob sitting before you. Good morning, James. To you, I give a Yoda high five. Okay. So before we jump into this chanting, allow me to remind you that if any point during this morning's live stream you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or their application, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. If you're using a laptop or a desktop, that chat window could be on the right. If you're using your smartphone vertically, that chat window could be down below. Together. Focusing attention on present pleasures and the future consequences is a limiting way to follow any path. It is something to avoid. Those of us whose teachers, spiritual teachers, or primary caregivers are rigid and fearful or controlling, learn to view our own body as an enemy, learn to view our own drives as an enemy, whether they be reproductive drives or commercial drives or interdependent drives. We learn to view them as an enemy. Ironically, those are survival drives that evolved specifically to ensure that we would live. They make excellent tools, but terrible tyrants. So our job is to not stop experiencing them. That would undermine our mindfulness, and without mindfulness, there can be no enlightenment. Our job is to perceive them and yet not be controlled by them, to allow these impulses to advise us but not dominate us. In another passage, we're reminded to recognize illusion while also enjoying illusion. There's the myth of the grim-faced piety. Life is difficult, and I've got to gut it out until I get my final reward. Grr, arg. That's a marvelously efficient way of squandering one's life. Let's not do that. Instead, when we experience pains as we breathe in, we notice. As we relax into our exhalation, we release them. The same thing applies to pleasures. We notice the pleasures in our life as we breathe in without editorializing. We release the pleasures as we relax into our exhalation. That's the key to tantric sex. We're taking a fundamental drive, the drive for food, shelter, clothing, hydration, copulation, the fundamental drive, and saying, hey, in an act of profound irony and quite a bit of fun, let's bring doing the hibbity-dibbity into the spiritual path. We do that not by indulging our controlling tendencies, not by fleeing orgasm, not by chasing orgasm, but by simply lovingly flowing from centered spontaneity in what we actively do and what we passively receive. As like a metronome, we notice and release in harmony with our inhalation and exhalation. That is an excellent metaphor of the spiritual path. Let's continue. Past, present, and future, one, not three. Only the present has endured throughout time. Whatever we experience during our inhalation, we're able to viscerally release during our exhalation. That release is the one taste that unites all things, beings, and phenomena. Conventionally, things are non-dual. Ultimately, they are. Our experience of the ultimate is dependent upon our experience of the conventional. There can be no exhalation unless we first inhale. Don't take my word for it. Ask a corpse. Let's continue now. The nature of reality pervades the whole of creation. Its wonderful qualities everywhere to be found. The nature of reality is not some secret, despite the malarkey of the elitists. We are wired to perceive non-graspability with every relaxing exhalation. It's hardwired into us. Bunny rabbits experience it. Tigers experience it. Your kitty cat experiences it. Are they intellectual giants compared to you? Together. Everything that appears in all the worlds derives from karma, is rooted in concepts, and is phantasmal in nature. Even the situation of a universal emperor is merely a training ground for dealing with illusion. As we breathe in, we can experience what feels like cause and effect, but as we breathe out, it feels like a non-graspable illusion. As we breathe in, we can experience concepts, some compelling, others oppressive, and as we relax, those same concepts could feel as non-graspable as an illusion. They could feel as non-graspable as if they were Casper the Friendly Ghost. Even a celestial entity, real or imagined, deals with the same stuff. Every entity that respirates, every entity with a central nervous system, perceives and releases. The fundamentalist teachers of Tibet teach that even after we shed a mortal coil, we might not have a physical body, but we have an etheric body with an etheric nervous system in the state between death and rebirth. It's called a bardo body, or at least some teachers call it that. If that is true, then that body has a similar nervous system we did, which would be very convenient. Then it too would be subject to respiration, inhalation, exhalation, observation, and release. So regardless of whether we take a literalist view and think about rebirth as a hell being or a hungry ghost or an animal or again a human or a demigod or a god, and whether that is literal or whether that is figurative, for there are times when we are consumed by rage or greed or fear or confusion or jealousy or pride. Whenever we are dominated by one of those fleeting states, we are still breathing, and therefore still wired to notice and to release. Let's continue. Those who meditate using the time-bound intellect will never be liberated within the time frame of their imagining. For those whose practice is rooted in person striving, everything said about emptiness fully applies. So, neither emotional prayer nor pseudo-intellectual gymnastics are going to get the deal done. We can recite koans till we're blue in the face, which I wouldn't recommend, but it's not going to get us there. We can do ritual upon ritual, and it's not going to get us there. There is a praise called the 21 homages to Tata, or praises and requests of the 21 Tatas, depending upon which translation you're using. And it's an energetic recitation, and some people will recite it once, some people will recite it thrice, some people will recite it once a month, some people will recite it like maybe 7 days in a row for a retreat. There was a late Dharma teacher in Tibet, lived many centuries ago, who recited it 21 times a day. That's exhausting. That feels like spiritual slavery, forever begging and pleading and carping. We're told here by the founder of Dzogchen, ain't that cute? But it's wrong. What is the path? As you breathe in, notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. As you exhale, allow your body to relax, for that is what it is wired to do. Allow your mind to release, for that is what it is wired to do. Do not confuse releasing with shoving away. Releasing just means we're taking a relaxing break from the exhausting habit of living in resistance. Let's get ready to start our meditation practice. But first, a moment of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. And now we turn our attention to this morning's primary practice text. Let us perform elaborate and then concise recitations of empathetic bodhicitta as well as enthusiastic refuge, beginning with the sedating triplet chant, followed by the energizing bookended chant. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hate and craving and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. And now, the formal explanation of mindfulness and meditation, which are known by many names, such as Zen, Shandhyana, Mahamudra, Mahasandhi, Ati-yoga, Dzogchen, or Treksho. Despite the fanciness of these names, it's super, super simple. And let's see, I think in the name of being simple, I'm going to do a quick edit because that's how I roll. So let's do a quick uno, dos, and let's do the old cut and back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, paste. Okay. So this bloke, what appears to be sitting here naked, is a drawing of the great reformer of Buddhism, Gaurab Dorje. So how does mindfulness work? During each inhalation, we are wired by evolution to spontaneously engage our sympathetic nervous system, which, although is not wired for active concentration, is wired to simply perceive, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Therefore, allowing us to notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, allowing us to notice emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, imaginings, confabulations. What then do we do with that which we notice? We meditate. But how does that work? Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we access our parasympathetic nervous system, which is wired for both physical relaxation as well as mental release. Therefore, during each inhalation, it's totally appropriate to silently and mentally recite the only label we'll ever need, the demonstrative pronoun this. And also during each exhalation, it's perfectly appropriate to silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic synonym of relaxing, which is the verb ease. So, let's practice. And remember, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist chanting, or their application, simply type your question in the chat window. And as Kramer said to Seinfeld, giddy up. not to believe the lies. Our job is not to exhaust our so-called negative sensations or negative emotions or negative memories or negative impulses or the like. There is no exhaustion of them. There is no storehouse of them, despite the fever dreams of those living in the Iron Age. We have a central nervous system, which is wired to keep us alive long enough to ensure there'll be a next generation. That's just how natural selection works. That nervous system is wired to keep us scared and aggressive and greedy. That's fine. That's how we're wired. Our job is not to stop having a central nervous system. Job is to, the only liberation we are promised is not liberation from the presence of our underbrain, but liberation from its tyranny. Therefore, it's safe to feel what we feel, whether that which we feel is external, or experience is external, internal, physical, mental, pleasurable, painful, interesting, boring, glorious, or grotesque. It's safe. It's not an indictment to feel something or see something or perceive something. So notice it with the utmost vulnerability, without the baggage of self-condemnation. And as you exhale, give your body permission to relax. Give your mind permission to relax as well. For that is what it is already wired to do. And to live in opposition to that fundamental aspect of our wiring is great folly, indeed. And so, one of the reasons a nickname for full enlightenment is nothing special is because all we're doing is becoming the healthy, well-adjusted adults that we were born to be, who are vulnerable and at ease. That is why one of the greatest accomplishments in Dzogchen is to be spontaneous, carefree, and at ease. And involuntarily empathetic. Now, I'm not sure if you're a big movie geek like me, but probably my favorite, one of my favorite Christmas movies would have to be Scrooged, a Richard Donner film starring Bill Murray. And in the executive's office, the executive's name was Peter Cross, and there's a banner in his office that says, "Cross, something you nail someone to." We have an inner Peter Cross. With every inhalation, we can notice him or her. But with every exhalation, we can let go of him and her. Welcome to this morning's group practice. As you breathe in, give yourself permission to perceive, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly, as silently and mentally you recite the demonstrative pronoun, this. With each exhalation, give your body permission to relax and your mind permission to release, as silently and mentally you recite the monosyllabic verb, ease. Like, like the Van Halen song, Panama. Reach down between my legs and ease the seat back. The moment you have a question, type it in great detail in the chat window, click send. I check for questions every 7 to 9 minutes. Sitting impeccably, noticing as we breathe in, relaxing as we're breathing out, is the path of liberation. When we do this spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively, that is enlightenment. And it can be accomplished in as little as a week. So said the Buddha in the concluding passage of the Satipatthana Sutta. Be right back. And I'm back. Thank you for your patience. I'm back. Thank you for your patience. All right. How to help my partner to the car. She has a fresh ankle injury. So thank you for being tolerant of my absence. If you've just joined me, welcome aboard. As you breathe in, you can silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, thus facilitating your act of noticing, your act of perception that is vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random. With each exhalation, you could silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic verb ease, thus aligning your intention with your body's tendencies to already physically relax and mentally release during each exhalation. Welcome to this morning's group practice. If at any point you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or their application, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window, and of course remember to click send. I check for questions approximately once every 7 to 9 minutes. The key to mindfulness is to allow ourselves to perceive as we breathe in, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Therefore, it's perfectly appropriate during each inhalation to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. The key to meditation is to allow our body to relax and our mind to release in coordination with each exhalation. And towards that end, it's perfectly appropriate to silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic verb ease with each exhalation. You can notice all manner of things as you breathe in. You can notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. You can notice emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, imaginings, and confabulations. You can notice the external, the internal, the physical, the mental, the pleasurable, the painful, the interesting, the boring, the glorious, and the grotesque. It's not your job to scold yourself based upon your momentary experience. It's your job just to experience what you experience as you breathe in, and relax and release as best you can as you breathe out. But to seal this morning's practice with a bit of the old chanting. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct in calmness, flow spontaneous and uncontrived. May everyone be free from misery, may everyone be happy. May no one be separated from their happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel on Patreon. And if you are as geeky as me, whoops, I forgot to tell you, sorry about that real quick. It's my intention to return in about 2.5 hours for today's mid-morning group meditation practice. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.